Hey everyone, we're jumping kind of in media res here, testing the Hofri list. Now, I'm actually going to go over the list in a separate video to be posted later, but the way I build my decks is to do initial brew, kind of run the numbers a little bit, and then start testing them actually in games online against actual decks. I feel there's no better way to learn whether the cards you've chosen are effective until you've actually tested the list and you've thrown it against a number of threats. This list has actually been tested for about 2 weeks now. I want to say I'm confident about 95 of the cards. I've only got a few cards that I'm still testing. But this is going to be the first recorded game with this list. And you're going to be able to see how this kind of evolves over time. Though it's possible that as a result of this game that no cards actually change depending on how things go. Again, like I said, this list has been tested pretty extensively before this video, but for future deck lists, I will start more from scratch and kind of show you the beginning of the process. So we rolled 16. The guy going right in front of us rolled a natural 20. So going second isn't the worst. Now with this list, we can't keep this because it has no lands. And this list is, let's see here. We could start off with a plateau into an unlucky witness. Enlightened Tutor could immediately get us a sack outlet. Actually, Skull Clamp is probably what we want to get here. So I think we can keep this. Okay, players can't gain life and damage can't be permitted. Looks like we're playing against two Sahelis, which is interesting. I think it's going to be hard for someone to beat two natural 20s. So yeah, I think the play, what we're going to do is we're going to play Unlucky Witness, and then we can Enlighten Tutor for the Skull Clamp. Go ahead and sack that just for that card advantage. Skull Clamp is one of the better sack outlets in the deck, though it doesn't necessarily hit every creature in the deck because a lot of them have more than one toughness. However, because we have a sack outlet in the opening hand, Ashnod's Altar, I'm pretty comfortable keeping this hand, even though it doesn't have that many early plays or necessarily any ramp, just because we can expect the Skull Clamp to be removed at some point, just because players like to take out card advantage from the opponents, which is I think is a smart choice. And so that allows us to hopefully play Ashnod's Altar, assuming the Skull Clamp gets removed, and then continue to do aristocrats things afterward. Now a lot of people, the way they've built Hofri is this sort of theft list, and I'm not a fan of that version. I think the theft version is much slower because the requirements, you're adding additional requirement basically if you're not trying to get value off your own creatures as much and instead running a bunch of threaten effects. Yeah, so I could play the Bloodstained Mire here just to get a Sacred Foundry. I'm gonna say, yeah, I prefer that just because we do run 36 lands. I consider that to actually be pretty high. 35 is usually what I like to run, but I found in testing that I really do like that 36 just for better mulligans. And so usually what I do is I try to use my fetch lands as early as I can in this list. That's not something that holds true for a lot of the other lists that I've brewed. But yeah, kind of going back to the reason why this isn't a threatened list, besides the fact that stealing opponent's creatures can be a little salt-inducing, it's honestly not that strong a lot of the times either. It's kind of one of those like, haha, I'm having fun, haha, you're not having as much fun because I just stole your creature. But in those games that I played, it's honestly not that, you can't build a synergistic deck that is effective at high power tables if you're just trying to steal opponent's creatures, because you're basically trying to steal good stuff, whereas they might be trying to actually play things that combo off. And so I found that it's better just to play aristocrats in general rather than threaten type effects. And one of the reasons that I was drawn to Hofri is because I was looking for a kind of an unusual aristocrats commander, and Hofri is a guy who, as of this video, has under 1,800 decks on EDHRec. In fact, most people have never even heard of Hofri. The number of times I've tested this list online and tried to play against someone, and midway through the game, they're like, what does Hofri do? I don't really understand. So here I think we're fine to attack. I'm honestly going to hit the NAB player here. Now there's argument for having done the Enlightened Tutor on the upkeep, dropping the land that I had in hand, and then just playing the Skull Clamp without immediately attaching it to the Unlucky Witness. The issue I have with that play is that if I pass with the Unlucky Witness and Skull Clamp, and then they say they destroy the Skull Clamp without me getting value out of it, I've now spent an Enlightened Tutor, and Enlightened Tutor again is kind of like negative card advantage. You're not actually adding a card to your hand with Enlightened Tutor, you're putting a card to the top of your deck, and Commander's largely a resource for. And so if I was to just pass with Unlucky Witness and a Skull Clamp, and then someone destroyed the Skull Clamp, I'm feeling pretty bad about that, compared to just saving it for a turn where I'm guaranteed to get value out of it. Going back to what I was kind of talking about in terms of Hofri and the aristocrat strategy. So I used to play Marchesa the Black Rose many years ago, and I think Marchesa is still viable at lower power tables. And don't get me wrong, Marchesa is so strong when she gets going, but the requirements to get going with Marchesa are actually pretty extensive. You've got to have Marchesa in play, you've got to have a sack outlet, you have to have a value creature in play, and you have to have a +1/+1 counter on that value creature if you're trying to actually get repeated value out of it. And lastly, you don't really get that repeated value until pretty much the end of turn, just because of the way that works. And so you can't do these sort of loops, these aristocrats loops that you can with Hofri, that you could with Marchesa. You have to sack your creatures and then wait till end of turn. And because of the way that, again, she gives dethrone to other creatures, but a lot of times, unless you have some other way to give those creatures +1/+1 counters, you're going to basically pass. You play your creature, you're gonna wait a full turn cycle before you can actually get that value out of those creatures. And so, to me, that's like that that creates a lot of awkward situations. What happens if someone kills your creature before you can attack with it? Well, you can't attack with dethrone now and get extra value out of it. What happens if someone, I'm trying to think here, plays a board wipe, and you're like, well, I wanted to sack my creatures at a different time than the time you're wiping the board. And so, there's a lot of awkwardness that can happen with Marchesa compared to the requirements that Hofri has to get value, and that is literally just, do you have Hofri? Do you have a sack outlet? And arguably, yes, you need to have value creatures in play, but if we're speaking honestly, you're going to play creatures anyway. That's just kind of what you're going to be doing. And so the idea is that you can curve out, on turn 5 or whatever, after you've played these sort of value creatures, and then start playing your aristocrats game plan without having to do this awkward thing where you need Marchesa in play to give dethrone to those creatures, and then you oftentimes having to pass like a full turn cycle before you can get repeated value out of them. Yeah, so this is a pretty strong start from Saheeli. Turn 1 Urza Saga into Sol Ring is um, always pretty scary just because you can get those double constructs. So we're looking at 5/5 construct tokens. I mean, this is enough to like want to wipe the board already, but I'm pretty sure that both of those are going to be swinging. I guess one has Summoning Sickness, but I'm gonna figure one is probably gonna assume it's swing at Saheeli. Though I'm a little wary of the Trusty Patches player here who started with the Leyline and Punishment and is playing a mono red burn deck. So yeah, I mean you can also swing at me. I am open. From a threat assessment standpoint, you can I think that's fair. You know, you can say that I'm probably a strong threat here. I'm hoping Trusty Patches. Okay, cool. So neither White Orchard wouldn't be getting as much value um, if he misses his land drop. So let's see here. Red source damage. Yeah. Okay, so we're about to take some heavy burn damage here. It's probably gonna hit me for 4, honestly. Okay. Yeah. So the play here is to play the Knight of the White Orchard. Go ahead and get ourselves that plains straight from the deck. It's going to come into play untapped, by the way. And then we're going to play our command tower. And so with 3 mana, we could play the Ashnod's Altar. And honestly, that it's either Ashnod's Altar or we equip the Skull Clamp. The thing is, we are probably going to get swung at by something here. So I like the idea of actually equipping the Skull Clamp and passing here. So go and equip, and then we'll pass. This being said, we are going to want to play the Ashnod's Altar at some point. The Skull Clamp is not an effective sack outlet for the majority of our deck. The main thing though is that there are enough enemy creatures in play to kind of use them swinging at us as kind of a sack outlet, if that makes sense. So yeah. Though I imagine we're going to take some pretty heavy burn damage here from Trusty Patches on his next turn. I don't see the Prismatic Lens used a lot. I'm guessing it could get him one of his missing colors. But I imagine I usually tend to think there are other artifact rocks that are more effective in higher level play. So he's got 5, 6, 7. He's gonna get 8 treasures basically. I'll just confirm with him. Yeah, 8. So yeah, I figured he's gonna hit my Skull Clamp, or at least someone is going to hit the Skull Clamp. Just because hitting card advantage or like this guy's burn is honestly pretty effective. It's gonna be hard to beat, honestly. The Saheeli into Dockside into Ulamog is a pretty strong turn 4 play. Thankfully, our board isn't necessarily as scary as some of our opponents, so I think the Ulamog isn't likely to be swinging at us, but someone else. I'm going to assume both these constructs are going to be coming at the burn player here, just because he had a, he's playing burn, so yeah. So he could have his own Ulamog if he wanted to. Okay. Yeah, artifact decks are pretty strong. And I haven't seen Saheeli in a while, and so it's interesting to see two of them show up. So here I think we kind of have to lay low. Because if we are the strongest on the board, obviously the Ulamog is going to come at us. I imagine these guys are going to go after each other most likely. Yeah, we're likely to the red player's likely to swing at us because we're the most open. Let's see. Take 6 plus 4, so we take 10. Go to 21. This is gonna be 6 out of 21 commander damage. Okay, so he's basically saying he's gonna threaten to kill the table here. It's pretty strong, pretty good. Honestly, I don't have anything that would really stop this. I think we just lay low, continue to lay low, play the solemn, and pass. I usually don't like relying on opponents to deal with things, but in this case, I think we're gonna have to. Yeah, so there's an attack trigger to exile the top 20. Honestly, you can probably just take 10 here. Again, you start with so much life in Commander, it's you need a pretty strong board state to kill someone with damage. Yeah, and a lot of what Commander is building up this really strong board state that is subtly strong. So like we actually have a lot of mana. We have a lot of good cards in our hand, honestly. But I mean, we all lose obviously if we make it to Trusty Patch's turn. And outside of playing more removal, and by removal I mean like probably some sort of like farewell or tuck effect. You know, it's hard. It's hard to beat a start that is like this. I mean, these decks are definitely doing powerful things. I'm a little confused what he's gonna do because pretty much it has to be him that deals with this board over here. Okay, so I misread actually. Okay, right. Instant or sorcery. Okay, so we would only lose half our life rounded down, not instantly lose all of our health because it doesn't double creature abilities. Yeah, he's in top deck mode. Just a little unfortunate for him. On our turn, if we were to draw a land, we could play Hofri and Ashnod's Altar. But I'm not sure if it's entirely in our interest yet to start going off. The moment we play Hofri and a sack out is usually when we start just really taking off. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, he's in top deck mode. He didn't draw anything relevant, looks like. Um, yeah, I get this mixed up too, honestly. Afflict 3 is loses life is not damaged. Yeah, that's very true. Um, okay. We have a couple options. Let's see here. I like playing Hofri actually. Um, Play Hofri, and then I don't think. I mean, we could play the Ashnod's Altar. It wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. I think that is probably the play. Yeah, he draws a card. Yeah, we'll do that. And I'm not going to try to sack immediately just because I don't see the need to. I would prefer to get that sort of card advantage and stuff whenever I can use it. So if anything, I would likely use the I would likely sack the Solemn Simulacrum and the Night of the White Orchard on Trusty Patch's turn, assuming he, let's see, 4, 5, 6. Okay, yeah, he's not going to hit the number of lands that we have, most likely. And so I'd probably just sack the Solemn at the end of his turn. Yeah, so everyone here doesn't quite see the threat we have lined up. Granted, I don't, outside of like Solitude, I'm not really sure of a good way to actually remove the Ulamog here. I'm mostly concerned about Olivier, the one with the Mystic Remora, just because he has a draw engine. He's not essentially in top deck mode in the way that everyone else is. Okay, so we have our concession there. So that's one player out. And honestly, with Trusty Patches being a red player in top deck mode, he did have some strong creatures in play. He could burn half our life rounded down each time, but again, that wouldn't kill us for a long time. And so I think once you get in top deck mode like that, you're kind of screwed in a lot of ways unless you've got an actual win con in play, or if you're not able to draw some sort of draw engine. Yeah. I mean, I'm fine having him miss the Mystic Remora payment once, but if you keep doing it and you're just like, because you got to pay it before you draw. You can't draw a card and be like, okay, I think it's time to get rid of Mystic Remora. I mean, if as a host in this sort of game, I don't generally like being cutthroat, but okay, it looks like we have a second concession. That's strange. I'm guessing he's just saying he can't. Yeah, he can't beat what this guy has, and so we're gonna say that this happened here. And this is a token here. So now we're going to add a counter here. So we have a Grasp of Fate. That is something we can use to get rid of Ulamog. Okay, so he can make a ton of mana. He's also kind of in top deck mode, if I'm to be honest here. So if I was to count our mana here, let's see, we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we could play the Elesh Norn and a Grasp of Fate if we sack the Solemn. So go ahead and do this. Sack the Solemn, draw a card, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Go ahead and play an Elesh Norn here. Let's see if this thing resolves. And this should allow us to actually attack and kill the Saheeli. Yeah, so get to there, and then I'm thinking honestly we just play yeah, let's play the Spirited Companion, draw a card, go ahead and sack this for 2. Draw another card, and let's see, yeah, we're at the spend, you know. I'm assuming because he's got 2 cards in hand and he's, okay, he's gonna play an offer we can't refuse. I think I'm okay with that, honestly. Because he does hit our Grasp of Fate here, but we just literally we have a 7s Reclamation. And that'll get rid of his Ulamog. And now he's basically in top deck mode, has 1 card. I'm still confused why the other guy conceded. I'm guessing he just had a crap hand. It's not like he was in top deck mode in any way. But yeah, I don't see how this guy comes back from this. I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Go ahead and get ourselves our own Sol Ring here. And then we don't really have that many creatures in here that are really strong for 3, 4, and 5. Go ahead and play a Karmic Guide. I could get a Solemn, and I think Solemn is probably better than the Unlucky Witness. So go ahead and get ourselves another Plains. So this is a Spirit here. I'm gonna guess he might have a Cyclonic Rift, so let's go ahead and see what this does. Seven, 11, 21. Yeah, something like that. Let's go ahead and play Wall of Omens. Go ahead and get us that card. And then just for good measure, play a Drannith Magistrate. Um, yeah. I mean, that thing is dead, so. Yeah, so that was a test of the Cephas list. As you can see, we did have to rely a little bit on the interaction of the table there. Uh, and I think that's fair. It's not like my deck is lacking removal. Um, and these decks aren't meant to be played in a 1v1. If I'm going to be brewing for 1v1 commander, I honestly don't even test in 1v1s either. Just because if someone was to drop that Ulamog on like turn 4, um, I think I might still be able to pull it out, but it's a hefty game. Um, because again, these decks are designed to uh, play against the table and expect some reasonable amount of interaction among players. There's not enough for the deck to try to control 3 other players, but it doesn't operate off the assumption that it needs to control 3 other players, but rather that it can just be kind of subtly powerful. Like I had more mana, more lands, I should say, than pretty much any other player in the game, except for the guy that went all in on that dock side. But more importantly than uh, the mana that I had, or rather, a better way to put it is the guy with the dock side had the mana, but he didn't have the card advantage, and that's something that this list has. Is it has that card advantage and the mana to back it up. You really need both in order to be effective. But yeah, honestly, I don't know of any card that was necessarily bad in my hand there. Treasure Keeper might be something that that could have been a removal spell there if that Ulamog was to continually swing at me. But in most of the games that I've played, this deck has the answers when it needs them. And it doesn't come out of the gate so fast that it becomes the initial threat, which I think is a mistake that a lot of decks do. Is they come out looking really strong instead of being subtly strong. Like playing Solemn and looping Solemn, getting a bunch of, as well as like Night of the White Orchid or like Lore Warhound, and getting all that mana or like, looping cards that give you card advantage doesn't necessarily look as strong if you do it subtly or if it's done in a subtle way. Like no one's gonna be like, okay, yeah, you you sacked your Unlucky Witness to the Skull Clamp. Um, uh, I guess at that time, yeah, I was kind of the threat because I had a pretty strong card advantage engine. But once they got rid of the Skull Clamp, they pretty much left me alone. And so, yeah, I mean that pretty much just sums it up. I think so far there aren't any changes I want to make to the list. You know, I'll run another video tomorrow night. And again, I like to test these lists until I've played a significant number of games online. And a lot of times these lists take about a month to complete, to the point where I'm actually happy with them. And so by that time, it's been somewhere between 30 to, I want to say 60 games, if not 100, just on the nights that I play multiple games in a row. And I'm not going to be recording every single one of those games. But I will talk about the games where I did make some changes. If if I happen to not be recording at the time, simply because Cockatrice will save the replay for every game that I've been in, and so I might go over some of the replays and kind of talk about what I wish I had in my deck instead of a certain card, and why I made a certain change. But otherwise, um, yeah, I think that this is not a bad place to start. We're pretty close to the finish, honestly, with Hofri already, and at some point down the line, we will arrive at the final list, and I'll put up the primer and everything officially published. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.